So look, we might kick off if we could. So firstly, welcome to the first of three NDIS industry briefing sessions, this one being the first one in Brisbane, second one in Cairns, third one in Rockhampton, to provide a briefing to the industry about the first year transition to the NDIS in Queensland. My name is Tony Hayes. I'm the Deputy Director General with the Department of Communities, Child Safety and Disability Services, and I've got the honour to be your MC today. We've got a lot of presenters, we've got a lot of material to cover, and indeed a lot of topics to address while we're all together today. But before we do an overview of that and present what we're going to be getting up to over the next 4 or 5 hours, I'd like to introduce Marucci Baramba, who is going to do the Welcome to Country. And Marucci is a songwoman and lawwoman for the Turrbal people and the traditional owners of Brisbane. Please welcome Marucci.
Dagatin Australian Abayugari Murumbaga Da Kalamaiki Perandangalayu Bigi Numbaiki Tamilin Murumba Bulkairi Yadini Australia Boo Taganurunalaiki Yoa Yadini Australia Balandigo Gundunumbaler Balandigo Gundunumbaler Yang Indai Yango Gundai Yango Balandigo Gundunumbaler Balandigo Gundunumbaler Bulkairi Marumba Mianjanu, that's welcome to Brisbane, in the language of the Turrbal people, in accordance with the customs of the collective of tribes of southeastern Queensland, for which we are a part of that one ancient society or kinship system. When we do Welcome to Country, that is done as a blessing of the gathering in a song, and I will do that in a Tinchiwa. But firstly, I would just like to extend the appreciation of the Turrbal people to the organisers of this event for having us here in this capacity. The Turrbals were actually documented as being extinct or on the verge of extinction back in the 1860s, and it's been just one small family that has survived the impact of European settlement upon our ancestral homelands. In saying that as well, that same family are also descended from the Gubbi Gubbi people of the Sunshine Coast and also the Waka Waka people of the Burnett River. We are what some people would call Cherbourg people or Baramba people, and it's because Cherbourg was a big reserve set up at the beginning of the 20th century where a lot of Aboriginals were taken for protection and preservation under the Aborigines Protection Act of the day. That's just a little peep into the window of history, of Queensland's history. Ours is a bit different to some of the other states. So while you're here in Brisbane, if you're from out of town, I hope you have a great time. She turns on the best weather at this time of the year. And me, myself, haven't been sent to Melbourne as a child. I know the difference. You go to school uniform with them, especially back in the 60s, a little miniskirt, even in Melbourne, you're shaking. But up here, it was only cold in the morning in the South Burnett. So, yeah, beautiful sunny days. Okay. So I'll do the blessing now, and thanks for having us. Muriana men, Manda Barisa, Muriana men, Bisalgariathai, Gavakari Buja, Manda Baritha Muriana Men. Manda Baritha Muriana Men. Ngada Payawa Nyin Yung Anala. Manda Baritha Muriana Men. Manda Baritha Muriana Men. Manda Baritha Muriana Men. Manda Baritha Muriana Men. Garin in Anami Chuchumobironu. Garin in Anami. Garin in Anami Chuchumobironu. Garin in Anami Chuchumobironu.
Thank you, Marucci. Wonderful welcome to country, and thank you very much for coming along here today. Can I also offer my acknowledgement of the traditional owners and elders past and present, and indeed acknowledge the special spirit and culture they bring to our meeting place today. So with regards to further welcomes, our next presenter is Michael Hogan, who is the Director General of the Department of Communities, Child Safety and Disability Services. He wants to also welcome everyone here today, but also set the scene for our discussions later on. Thank you. Please welcome Michael in the normal way.
Hello everybody, thank you Tony. Can I also acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we're gathering today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and a particular thank you to Marucci Baramba for that warm and powerful welcome to country. Can I also acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders and organisational leaders and representatives that are here today. I'm sure we share, and I'm sure all the people in this room share, a particular commitment that the NDIS is another vehicle to enable Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Queenslanders a better life and to close the gap for those folks with disability and their families. And secondly, I'd like to offer an apology on behalf of Minister O'Rourke, Minister for Disability Services and Minister for Seniors. Minister O'Rourke had intended to be with us today. Your invitation was from Minister O'Rourke on behalf of the Queensland Transition Advisory Group, but she unfortunately is stuck in Townsville and has asked me to pass on her best wishes and to speak on her behalf. I'd also like to acknowledge representatives here today from the National Disability Insurance Agency, from the Commonwealth Department of Social Services, from my own agency, but in particular the members of the Ministers' Advisory Group, the Queensland NDIS Transition Advisory Group, and in particular to acknowledge and thank a number of them who've been instrumental in the design of today's forum, and indeed the forums that are going to happen in Cairns and Rockhampton over the next week. So Richard Nelson from NDS, Paige Armstrong, the CEO of Queenslanders with Disability Network, Rhys Kennedy from CPL, and other members of QTAG. Thank you in particular to you for working with us to really frame and organise and promote this forum, and what a fantastic job you've done, because look how many folks have come out for this briefing. So clearly your participation and representation here is an interest in how deep your interest and commitment is to the National Disability Insurance Scheme. And of course we have recently completed year one of the transition to the NDIS in Queensland, year one of the first phase of a 3-year rollout. As at the 30th of June, about 12,344 Queenslanders had engaged in one way or another with the NDIA. And of those folks, about 7,250 people had a plan by the 30th of June. That's now about 8,500 folks. To date in Queensland, most people transitioning have been existing state disability clients. So in Townsville and Mackay and Toowoomba, and now in Ipswich and now in Bundaberg, the majority of the folk who are going in have been existing state clients supported by many of your organisations. Far fewer than had been anticipated of the Commonwealth or new clients, the folks who hadn't received a disability service or a funded disability service, have come in so far, much fewer. In 3 months' time, we'll be halfway through the transition phase in Queensland, but we'll probably only have about 1/6 of Queenslanders participating in the scheme at that point. Now, we're always going to have a sort of a big J-curve of entry into the NDIS. About 15,000 was in the bilateral in the first year, 16,000 in the second year, and 60,000 people in the third year. Now, our experience clearly is that the new and the Commonwealth folks, particularly the new, are going to come in when they're ready, when they've got confidence in the scheme and when they're ready and able to do so. But we are still likely to see that big surge, especially of existing clients, come through in the third year, so in 2018-19. And that starts, of course, now in just 9 months or so away. So it's very timely to take this opportunity to gather and to share what we know so far. To give you some background to today's event, the Queensland Transition Advisory Group, which I mentioned previously, has met regularly before and through the transition period to check in on our readiness, our preparations, and the experience of participants, of providers, of the community, of the NDIA, of other Queensland government agencies, of your sector, and of the NDIA in that transition over the last 15 months or so. And one of the things that we talked about a few months ago was how critical it is that we share the information that we're gathering and the learnings and experience to date across the whole disability community, so that you get the benefit of the experience to date. And so that's why we're here at the instigation of the Minister's Transition Advisory Group. As we know, the NDIS is a transformational change in the way that people with disability receive their support. It's a change that is intended to give much greater choice and control, more opportunities, and much greater social and economic inclusion. And it is very important that we hold close to the centre that vision and those aspirations for what the NDIS ought to be for Queenslanders with disability. In those parts of the state that have transitioned, we are delighted to be hearing firsthand some of the real and positive impacts that the NDIS is having on many people's lives. Of course, participants and providers, agencies, the NDIA have all experienced many issues with the transition, and that's to a degree to be expected with something of the scale of the change that's underway. And those service and system issues have been wide and varied, from data sharing, from participant engagement, the participant planning experience, provider registration, issues with the portal, issues with pricing, issues with dealing with complexity, plan utilisation, the role of advocacy, particularly access for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Queenslanders and people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, the handover from disability services to the NDIS to providers and participants. Lots of those issues have been experienced. And of course, there's a whole range of other issues about how the NDIS is interfacing with other systems, with mental health, with early childhood, with health, with transport, with housing, with justice, with education and training and employment. So, and child protection and family support. So lots of those interface issues and lots of experience being gained about what is or isn't working with that interface as people gain a plan and how that works accessing other service systems. So all of those issues are being identified as we go and sought to be addressed, and some of them and many of them are still outstanding. So this is clearly a massive and disruptive and difficult and dynamic and evolving change. As an example, for the department itself, just one little indicator of how the scale of the change over this 3-year period, we are reducing the size of the disability staffing establishment by nearly 1,500 positions. So 1,500 folks are making choices about, as the rollout happens, about whether they go and work for you, go and work for another Queensland Government agency, go and work for the NDIA, or get the tinny and go on a holiday, or keep on working for us in another part of our department. But that's a huge change for us, and you can imagine all the issues that go with that. So all of this for you and for the NDIA, for all of the agencies involved, is taking a huge effort, and there have been some things that have been got right and some things that have been got wrong. So we're going to hear today some of the good and the bad and the ugly of the experience to date. So I said we've set a time frame for transition in Queensland of 3 years. So that's effectively the period for when the Queensland government gets out of, through disability services, the administration of disability services funding. And that goes across to the NDIA, into the NDIS. But we're fairly clear, I'm very clear, I've sort of thought for quite a long time now, that this is going to be way longer than a 3-year transition. So I think we will largely see the transition of existing state clients in that 3-year period. But the lesson from here and in all the jurisdictions is that as the new clients take their time and come in when they're ready, willing and able, that we will see full scheme really not emerge perhaps till the 5th year. And indeed, I'm sure we've all sensed that this scheme is going to take much longer to mature and to realise the vision and the aspirations that we all have for it. So this is a marathon. Indeed, it's a rolling series of marathons across the state, with sprints as the clock gets closer to a start date, and that's not easy. It is exciting, but it's also daunting. All of us have to keep on working hard to get ready, to adjust, and to influence this as we go. So it is something that's not designed and taken off the shelf. This is very much a learning exercise, something of the scale and pace and nature of this enterprise. What the Minister has asked me to do is to commit on behalf of the Queensland Government and on behalf of the Department that we will continue to work closely with the disability community and the disability sector, with your agencies and with the NDIA and the Commonwealth Government as we take this journey together. We will keep on working to identify and deal with those issues, whether it's a ministerial level, whether it's through our national forums and our bilateral forums, all the way through to the local forums and groups that many of you may now be involved in. All of those are critical to picking up the intelligence of your experience and insights into what is or isn't working. So today you'll receive information from NDIS participant experience, about the intake, about the profile, about what's in plans and what's not, about their experience and behaviours through this journey. There'll be a session on the NDIS market and workforce story to date and the opportunities for growth and transition and some of the challenges and changes that involves. You'll also hear from providers in their experience in preparing for and delivering services in the NDIS environment. Over the past 3 years, the Department has invested now well over $15 million in participant and provider and community readiness initiatives. And we've also secured, in partnership with the Commonwealth Government, an additional $5.8 million through the Commonwealth sector development funding in Queensland through 16-17 and 17-18. At the end of June, about 29,000 Queenslanders had participated in the participant readiness workshops across the state over the last couple of years. I think well over 2,150 of those workshops. We have NDS and Connections Inc and MDA continuing to do really vital work, engaging with the providers. The tools that were developed some years ago have continued to evolve. And we have, of course, now a very important initiative, the Workability Consortium, Workability Queensland, that's funded at a consortium of the Workforce Council, NDS, the Community Services Industry Association and QCOS, putting in place regional level workability coordinators to enable the sector to plan the workforce growth and change that's happening or that's coming. Of course, there is much more to do, and I do want to particularly indicate the priority we see in ramping up our engagement with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and community-controlled organisations, and with culturally and linguistically diverse communities. There's also more to come at a national level. The NDIA will be commissioning imminently, we understand, the next big tranche of LAC investment for the start of those areas transitioning from 1 July at the moment, next year. And next year, in 2018, we'll see a very significant commissioning of information linkage and capacity building initiatives across Australia, but particularly in Queensland. So all of those components are being put in place to help with this transition. And I do want to just also remark that Minister O'Rourke was keen that we make mention of the All Abilities Queensland plan. So just a few months ago, the Minister released the new State Queensland Disability Plan, and it runs and transition with this NDIS strategy. And its particular purpose is to focus on the broader opportunities and responsibilities of all sectors, of all industries, to make Queensland an inclusive and enabling state for Queenslanders with disability. And I know the commitment to an inclusive Queensland is at the core, it's at the heart, it's at the mission of the disability sector and the disability community in Queensland, and I want to acknowledge and thank you for your continued commitment to that. And it's vital that we maintain that commitment to make sure that the NDIS actually realises the goals I know that we have for it. So thank you for your hard work to date through transition. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the continued effort and contribution you'll make to supporting Queenslanders with disability. Thank you very much.